Genesis chapter 37. Remember in chapter 36 we saw Esau and his whole history and the history of his lineage. Today in chapter 37 we make a transition. We make a transition to a person named Joseph. It's really quite interesting when you think about it, because 1/4 of the entire book of Genesis is dedicated to Joseph. Who was Joseph? Well, this is probably a pretty good time for us to look at the 12 tribes, the 12 children of Jacob. So let's take a look at that chart. Now remember that Jacob had 2 wives and 2 servants that he had children by. Here's a chart that shows that relationship. And you remember his favorite was Rachel, and Rachel had just 2 children. She had Joseph, who we're going to be studying for a quarter of Genesis, and Benjamin, whom she died having childbirth. Now remember, the chapter 37 begins by telling us that Joseph is only 17 years of age. He is the second to youngest of the children. And it also tells us that Israel, or Jacob, loved him more than all of the other sons, probably because he was one of Rachel's. And so we see here that favoritism again by a parent and how destructive that can be. Nevertheless, we know that he demonstrated his love for his son by making him a multicolored tunic, or in many of the dramatizations we have a multicolored jacket. Nevertheless, he was loved very much by Jacob, and that caused some jealousy by the brothers. And it tells us in 3 different verses that his brothers hated him. Now that's a pretty strong word. They didn't just dislike him. Verse 4 says that he hated him. Verse 5 says after a dream that Joseph relayed to his brothers, they hated him. And in verse 8 again, we find that phrase, they hated him. And when he tells the first dream, he says that we're gathering sheaves, and my sheaf rises up, and all of your sheaves bow down to my sheaf. And of course his brothers were furious. The second dream that he had was that he said that the sun and the moon and 11 stars bowed down to him. And his father rebuked him for that. He said, "You mean even I and my wife will bow down to you?" But it also tells us that not only were the brothers jealous of that, but they tells us clearly here in Scripture that Joseph was not only seemingly brash and bragging about his status in life, but it says his father Jacob kept that in mind. That's an interesting phrase, isn't it? Even though he rebuked his son for the statement, he kept it in mind. He must have seen that Joseph truly believed that his brothers, and yes, even the moon and the stars, would bow down before him. Interesting, isn't it? Well, stay tuned to tomorrow to find out where this goes. God bless you and have a great day.